everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and today we're going to talk about what will you do to survive the next outbreak or viral pandemic. Now, viruses, diseases, bacteria, everything else out there in the world that's causing people to be sick are starting to evolve and get a lot more strong and a lot more resistant to drugs and different treatments that we currently have. They are evolving to basically wipe us out. And a lot of us in the prepper and survival community agree that a pandemic is one of the few things that can actually start SHTF and actually lead to Tiatowacky. So if you like videos or content about SHTF or Tiatowacky, please hit the subscribe button below. It really helps the channel and it helps us gain a lot of support here and lets me spread a little bit more of this information. So thank you very much. Now, moving forward with the idea of what you'll do to survive an epidemic, pandemic, or viral outbreak, whatever you want to call it, okay? So there's a lot of things you need to do now to prepare for those situations. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about, hey, stock up on fish mocks or stock up on medicine. Those things are very important, and obviously we should be doing that anyway. But what I really want to talk about is your mindset. What are you thinking about right now that means you're going to be able to make the decisions you have to make to be able to survive an outbreak? We all know the zombie apocalypse idea is definitely a metaphor or a euphemism almost even for a viral outbreak of some sort, with infected human beings being very desperate and having to do what they need to survive, while other human beings need to keep their distance in order to survive and not contract whatever contagion those people have. Now, here's the thing. I want you to really think and look deep into your mind and say, what am I willing to do when that outbreak or pandemic starts? Because it's one of those things I've had to think about quite a bit, and I think all of us could think about a little bit more. Because an outbreak's a little bit different than your average SHTF scenario. If there's a war, you know who your defined and clear enemy is. You know, if there is a food shortage, you know, we're all going to try to get food and ration things and try to survive in that sense. But when it comes to an outbreak, there's a lot of factors involved that make you possibly put yourself in a position where you have to make decisions that are very, very difficult. And you have to prepare for those decisions to be made now, so that way you know before those things arise that you already have an action plan. You already have something in your mind of what you're going to do. So what leads me to this conversation? Why are we even talking about this right now? Well, first off, there's been a rise in things going on around the world, right? So we have Ebola over in Africa. The World Health Organization just released an app that can track those people to try to keep things a little bit easier for them going out and treating people, as well as keeping an eye on where those people are and making sure they're not crossing borders and taking the disease elsewhere. So we're already making apps now to try to fight viral outbreaks, which is huge because it's gotten to that point where we need technology to help us keep an eye on what's going on. Then we also have things like this EEE virus coming in from mosquitoes and all the Zika and the malaria and everything else they already do, West Nile, whatever you want to add to the list. But they're always creating more problems for us. And mosquitoes are a huge concern, and it will only take one virus to evolve to the point of not being able to be combated very well for these mosquitoes to spread it very quickly and very, massively throughout the entire country. So those things are already happening right now. There was one other event I recently talked about, which was the smallpox that was stored in a Russian test facility that was destroyed from a gas explosion. Well, we haven't heard anything about that ever since, and it is odd for the government of Russia to come in and say, hey guys, guess what? This happened, it exploded, sorry, gas explosion. Let's be honest, the smallpox virus is probably going to rear its ugly head at some point in the form of maybe some kind of a bio attack or something like that. So keep your eye out for that. But all these things are out and about, and they're here to wreak havoc on humanity. So we have to keep an eye out for them now. And if you're not preparing for how you're going to react when those things start to occur, then it's going to cause you a lot of moral dilemmas and a lot of difficulty in making the right choice when that decision has to be made. So I keep saying that, right? What decision are you talking about, Magic Prepper? What exactly is going on that we have to prepare for in our minds right now? Well, the difference between an outbreak and, let's just say, a group of marauders trying to steal your preps, right, is the fact that you don't necessarily know if somebody's sick. They might have the virus, they might be a carrier, they might be in a position where they aren't showing symptoms, but they are infected. It's going to be very difficult to, ascertain whether or not they're sick and whether or not they're going to get you sick and cause you harm. Whereas, a group of marauders who are carrying around a bunch of weapons and have, baseball bats with spikes sticking out of them, because that's the cliche, those people are going to be very easy to identify, and you're going to say, I don't really want those guys over here. I got to get rid of them, okay? When it comes to a virus or an infection, people do not always show you exactly what's going on. So it's going to cause a lot of issues. A lot of people are going to have to become recluses. You're going to have to hide in your home. You're going to have to try to stay away from people as much as possible. And when strangers come around, it's not going to be a, hey, here's a helping hand. Let me help you out with some charity right now. It's going to be a, get away from my house, and I need you to leave immediately because I don't know if you're sick or not. And no matter what they claim or what they say, you can't actually trust whether or not they're sick unless there's some kind of a test developed that can prove to you that they are. And in the times that we're talking about of an epidemic that moves into a pandemic that becomes such an explosive viral outbreak that we're literally talking about SHTF and people not being able to survive and, turning into a collapse of society, then you're not going to just have the technology laying around to scan their, retinas and say, oh, actually they are sick. Those things aren't going to come around. So we're going to have to decide, am I even going to let strangers around me? Am I even going to let them nearby? And then you have to make this really difficult decision, which is, what proximity are you going to allow between you and this stranger before you have to take action to make sure they can't get any closer? And when I say that, I think all of you know exactly what I'm talking about, so I don't need to say it, but I'm not going to let you get between a certain distance to me. I'm just not going to let it happen. If this virus is airborne, I don't need anybody close by breathing on me. I don't need anybody even exchanging conversation with me to the point where they might spit on me, okay? So I need a lot of space, and you have to decide what that space is going to look like. Now, the government might come out and say, hey, it's a 21-foot radius, and you have to be careful of anyone within 21 feet. And, I use that number because it's the number of self-defense. 7 yards is as fast as you can clear in 1 second, which is everybody's reaction time. So I think it's actually a decent thing to start with in any scenario when it comes to keeping your distance. But I don't know exactly what the number is going to be, but you have to decide now what you're willing to do to survive an outbreak if somebody gets too close. If somebody comes out to your property and maybe there's a group of them, or maybe it's a family, or maybe it's something that's harder to deal with, like a group of children who are orphaned now, or who knows what, right? You can't allow those people to get close enough to you to cause an infection or to even cause you a problem at all. I mean, it's just not worth the risk. And if you don't want to decide right now in your mind what it is you're willing to do to survive in order to keep yourself or your family or loved ones protected and healthy and risk-free of infection, then when that time comes, how are you going to make that decision? How are you going to sit there on your front porch and say, if they get any closer, I don't know what I'm going to do? When that time comes, you need to exactly know what you're going to do. And you know what? We've all seen the signs. Trespassing. We all know what will happen to you if you trespass. Please don't come on my property. You have to live up to that sign if that's something you're going to abide by. You can't have a bunch of empty threats, and you can't have a bunch of, wishy-washy ideas on what it is you're going to do if that time comes. So surviving a virus or an outbreak or a pandemic or whatever is going to take a lot of factors. And of course, there's the medication side of things. There's the resources side of things. There is the staying away from people side of things. But what I wanted to talk about today was just how are you going to make those super hard decisions of, what will I do to survive? What am I willing to do to survive? And am I willing to make that hard decision when that time comes? Because I cannot tell if everybody's infected. I don't know in their brain if that virus is in there, and I don't know if they're actually sick. But if they get any closer to me within this amount of distance, they're not going to be able to get any closer to me. And you have to make that decision now so that when that time comes, you can implement your plan of action and not waver from it, because that is survival. Surviving is basically setting yourself a set of rules that you have to live by, or else you know you will probably die. And if you don't want to die, you need to set those rules now so that when the panic starts and when collapse occurs, you're not running around trying to figure out what those rules are going to be, okay? So I don't want you guys to take this the wrong way. I don't want this to be a big conversation about, what medications to stockpile or what resources you need to have stored away in order to combat some kind of an outbreak. What I would like you guys to do is leave the comments below and let me know what your thoughts are on a good proximal distance for allowing people nearby, what it is you're willing to do to survive, and what you think the average person is going to do in those scenarios. Because I think, honestly, most people are going to say, oh no, the children, come on in. And then they're going to get them and their entire family sick. And I think we can all agree that unless you're a prepper or a survivalist or somebody who has the forethought to know what the risks are, and have some statistics to back you up and say, percent chance right now is that I'm going to die if I let these people in my house, right? Well, we all know the average person doesn't think that way. And some people do it out of the goodness of their heart, and I admire that. But you know what? It's probably going to make it so they won't survive the next viral outbreak, okay? Hold on one second. I have to drink from the Freedom Cup. It just tastes so good in that flag. And you guys understand that I just want to help you build that mindset that you need to have, okay? Yes, I can sit here and show you different preps that I have when it comes to medical. I can show you different concepts that I've put together for how to avoid getting infected or contaminated based on biological warfare or any of those other situations that might occur, like I said, mosquitoes and whatnot. But what I really want you guys to do is think hard and kind of reflect on yourself and say, can I do this, or will I do this, or am I willing to do this? Because if you're not, then I would say you should probably get as far away from other people as humanly possible if you're not willing to make the hard decisions when it comes to survival. Because you need to make sure you're never put in that position in the first place. Otherwise, you won't survive. So, leave a comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are about this. I really appreciate you guys' support. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff that I'm supposed to say, right? And without anything else to talk about, that's going to be it for Magic Prep.